Okay, set define attrition. So this is a data set about the attrition of IBM of a company, and attrition is actually a big problem that impacts all the businesses. And if you have some um, working experience, you maybe you know about that. And this is the attrition problem leads to some significant cost of a business, including the cost of business disruption, hiring new staff, or training new staff. So our task in this data set is to find out some relationships or some correlations or some key factors that lead to the attrition rate of employees. So what is attrition? Attrition means that when employees leave the company, it can be because of many reasons. So for example, if they reach the age of retirement, they will leave the company for retirement, or they can resign from the company. Yeah, and there are so many cases. So a company wants to be prepared for the attrition situation. So now um, let's import some libraries that we use to reprocessing this data. So let's import Panda and NumPy. And we should create a path for our data. And the path is where you store your data set in your computer. Okay, so after you have your path in the Jupyter notebook here, next step is to define the data frame. And let's take a look at the data. Oh, wait. What is the mistake here? Oh, all right. Okay, so here is the data set. So there are many attributes here. Actually, there are 35 attributes, and we should take a look at those attributes before doing any processing. Here. Okay, so if you look at my screen now, this is the description table, and we have variables from numbers like age or salaries like monthly income, and we also have some categorical attributes like education, department, years that no overtime, yes or no, right? So if you take a look at the overtime, this is a binary attribute, only have one no or two yes. And why they wrote 1 and 2, it is the encoding of the attribute. So if you see the 1 in your data set, it means no, 2 means yes. Okay. And the same thing for the marital status. If you see number 1 in that column, it means divorced, 2 married, or 3 single. Okay. Okay, so move back to the Jupyter notebook. Um, what do you, can you elaborate on your question, like the data frame in Jupyter notebook, or The one that I showed.
It's okay. I got it. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. So here is our data frame. Yeah. So we call this data frame in Python. So if you scroll to the right, like here you scroll to the right, you can see that this data set is sorted. You can see the no from rows 1 to rows 5, right? And at the bottom you can see the missing value, and this is sorted by the class attrition. So for doing data analysis or for machine learning, you don't want your data to be sorted like this because it will cause some troubles like class imbalance or um, other problems. So you want to shuffle your data set before analyze it. So you can shuffle it by a simple syntax. So you define the new data frame df equals to df.sample fraction1. So this is the fraction1 is, it means that pandas will for the indexes of your data set and run it. Okay. So now please print, no, not print, but check the tail of your data frame. Okay, so as you can see, in the first column, you can see it was shuffled. And if you scroll to the right, the last column, the attrition column, you can see that there are no and also yes, right? So we can know that our data frame was shuffled. And however, you don't want your index to be random like this. So the next thing to do is to reset your index with this simple syntax. And pretty simple, reset index. And now you can print the tail to see. Okay. So after you reset your index, you can see it now already in order. Okay. Okay, so next thing we want to do here is to check for the missing value, right? Because we saw there are so many missing value in our data sets. So how can we check the missing value? One way to do is to check with the syntax is no, which is you ask the program, is there any no missing values in the data set? And you want to sum the total, sum the missing values, the number of missing values. Okay, so here you can see monthly income has 48 missing values out of 1,500 data points, and overtime 25 missing values, attrition 36 missing values. So I would like to ask you, what should we do here? For example, if we have the 36 missing values of attrition, which is our class, what we want to predict, what should we do with these missing values? Can anyone tell me what should I do here? May I call Fujita-san, can you tell me how to?
Hello.
Oh,
Hello.
so for if we have you have missing values here, the attrition.
Yes.
What should we do here?
Mm,
So do you remember we have some options, which is to delete those values or to replace those values. So what do you think we should do here? To just delete them or else?
mm. So we might first need to search for them and sort of replace them. Although I don't actually remember the code. Yeah.
Okay, so thank you. So for the class attrition here, we have 36 missing values, and since it is what we want to predict, the class, if you don't have the values, then you cannot actually predict. So I recommend you to delete those values. So how you can drop the attrition? So if you remember, we can drop by using the drop NA function. So drop NA, and what do you want to drop? Which is the subset attrition. And also you want to set the aces equals 0, which is you drop the rows of that attrition, and in place is true. In place is true means it will replace your original data set with the new data set. Okay, so after that, we want to check if we have deleted those missing value or not by using this function. Attrition is no, and sum. It's exactly the same as the above function. Okay, so now you see there's no missing value in the column attrition anymore. That's good. But we still have the monthly income. So what should we do with the monthly income? May I ask Dylan, can you recommend a way to deal with the missing value in the monthly income?
I'm
So
not sure.
So if you are given two choices, one is to drop the missing values, and one is to replace by the average of the monthly income. What you do in this situation?
Just drop it.
Drop. Yep. Actually, drop is a quick way to deal with missing value, but actually in this situation, the monthly income is the float. The type of monthly income is float, so you can calculate the mean and replace those missing value.
Okay.
Okay. So we can how can we calculate it? So we calculate very easily. So you set another variable, monthly income equal the monthly income here, and we calculate the mean by the mean function. Aces. No, acid equals 0. So you replace them. And let's print out the mean monthly income. Okay. Oh. Is there any problem? Oh, I had a typo here. Okay. So after print out the result of the mean, you can see that the average of income is $6,521 a month. So you can use this average value to replace the missing value in the monthly income by this function. So remember the numpy function ANA and curate by the monthly income and in place equal true. Okay. Okay. So we already replaced, we already solved the missing values of 2 columns, and we now have one left. Oh, so there's a question about the link in path. So this is the path from my computer. So you can find the path for your data set by looking at where you store the data set. Okay. Okay, moving on. So if we print this function one more time, you can actually see now we only have one column that has missing values over time, 25 missing values. So for this we can actually we can drop it. Yeah, it is the simplest way to do with the object type of data. Just drop it. For the number, you can replace by the mean. Okay, so now you just do the same thing as the way you drop the attrition missing value. And this data set, there are so many unnecessary attributes that you want to just delete them. So as a kind of self-practice, I'd like you to figure out what attributes should we delete. So there are some attributes that is not so informative, so I want you to delete them. So for your home practice, please choose some attributes that you want to delete. And also, after you delete those attributes, you can use it for your Tableau data visualization for exploratory data analysis. And please make some good visualization, and we will use those visualization for the next session to make a dashboard for presentation. Okay. So do you have any question? So if you don't have any question, and I think this data set is pretty clean, you just need to drop some unnecessary attributes by yourself, and then you can use the data set to do some visualization with Tableau. And next week, please bring your visualization to our session for practicing creating dashboard. Okay. Just a quick review of how to pre-process your data with Python. Okay, Natasha, you have a problem with creating Jupyter Notebook, or what kind of problem do you have? Can you speak up?
Oh, I think I must have typed something wrong, but I can't like catch up in time. So I was hoping if you could like upload the instructions I had to do this on the AP Data Science website,
Okay,
so I can follow later in my own time.
okay. That's good.
Thank you.
I will. Okay, so if there is any no other questions, then we can finish our session today, and we can I will stay here for a while. So if you have any other questions, please feel free to ask me. And remember to visualize this data set for next session. Thank you so much for joining us today.